Welcome, Bridge Builders, to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch, and we've got Juliet and Ashton here in studio again with us. Today we're going to be talking about missions, and we're going to be having two episodes, one kind of focused on Juliet's mission experience and the other on Ashton's mission experience. So if you're listening to this one, we're starting with Juliet, and then in the next episode we will start with Ashton. So make sure you tune in. These will be a little bit shorter episodes each, and they'll release a week from each other. All right, well, we'll get started. For those who are just joining us for the first time, welcome. We're the Latter-day Bridge Builders, a mix of former members, current members of the church, beliefs about the church, and so forth. And this is what we do. So please follow along, subscribe. If you can donate to the podcast, we appreciate it. All right, Juliet, we'll start with you.
Okay.
You served your mission in Missouri, Independence.
Independence.
And what years were you there?
2008 to 2009.
Okay. And you're a convert to the church when you were 16.
Yeah.
So you left when you were...
I left when I was 21. Yeah, I was before the age change. I turned 21 in October. I would have been starting my fourth year of college. I took a leave of absence from school. Turned 21 in October, put my mission papers in just basically as soon as I could, and left for the MTC on New Year's Eve of 2008.
Went into the MTC New Year's.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. And Provo MTC.
Mm-hmm.
All right. English speaking.
English speaking. Yeah. And I will say, so the Independence mission at the time, there's about 40 visitor center sisters in the mission and 10 full proselyting sister missionaries in the mission, and then a lot of elders that were just proselyting. And I was one of the missionaries, one of the sisters that was a fully proselyting missionary.
Okay.
And so I went to a big church history spot, but don't know anything about it.
Interesting. Okay. And how big was the mission, like, geographically? Like, was it located just in Independence? Like, how many missions were in Missouri, for instance?
I don't know how many missions were in Missouri. Most of the Missouri Independence mission at the time was actually in the state of Kansas. And my first area, which ended up being the only area I served in, was the Hays, Kansas area. I don't know how big the mission was, but my area was 100 miles east to west and 50 miles north to south. So about my area between my companion and I was about 500 square miles.
Okay.
Mostly farmland.
All right.
A handful of little towns, lots of towns that didn't have a single stoplight in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were an hour from the closest missionaries, another set of sisters, and 2 hours from our zone leader.
That's interesting. I was also afastado is what we said, like out there on my
way the heck out there.
I was it was me and my companion were the only ones on the entire island.
Yeah.
For one point, but all right. So you said your only area, meaning
I got sent home early.
Tell us about that. What was that like?
Yeah.
If you're comfortable sharing exactly the details.
Yeah, I will.
As much detail as you want, but.
Yeah. So my mental health was terrible. I was pretty depressed prior to my mission. I was medicated going into the mission, and really struggled there. I think partly I realize this now because on a mission, almost all of your coping mechanisms are taken away, especially back then, like when we were more limited on like talking to friends and family at home. It's like the things I would normally do, I couldn't do. Like I couldn't just like call up a friend. I couldn't just call up my mom. I couldn't just go for a run. I couldn't just go for a walk. I couldn't just go to the temple. I couldn't just go read my scriptures. Like I could read my scriptures, but it was like at a certain time in a certain way with certain people. I couldn't just like listen to whatever music, go for a drive and zone out. And so my mental health was not good. I remember one time, it was after 10:30, so it was like after I was supposed to have gone to bed, and my companion was in bed, and I was sitting in our living room of our little basement apartment, and I just couldn't bring myself to go to bed because I felt like I didn't deserve a bed. Like I felt like I just felt like unworthy of being in a bed. I also had a lot of content warning for like mention of like self-harm. I had a lot of very intrusive, very like graphic self-harm thoughts of me just like dying or like killing myself in different ways that, again, intrusive, didn't have the means to actually like complete these things, but very present. My mission was not like a bad experience. Like as far as what was happening to me, like my mission president was fine. My companions were good. Like we got along in general. Like my zone leaders and like district leaders were fine to good, I would say. We weren't mistreated by members of the ward or by members of the community. I was in a safe place. We had enough food. So it was all up here. And just because it's up here, that doesn't mean it's not real, but it was all up here. And so,
if you're okay, would it be fair to say, like, you mentioned these things were happening before, perhaps the mission didn't fix, but it didn't, maybe like the structure of the mission, it was probably, from what I'm hearing, this is what it's sounding like, the structure of the mission didn't allow for self-regulation, self-care, and so forth, and maybe that was like the biggest part of the mission aspect that wasn't helping. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so. It's not that the mission made me depressed, but I think I was maybe like the same amount of depressed kind of at baseline, but that being on a mission made it so that I didn't have some of like the coping, a lot of the coping skills I would have had otherwise.
Okay.
It was, I think it felt isolating to me, like being a missionary. It felt lonely, even though I was like trying to talk to as many people as I can.
And you're with someone 24/7.
Yeah, who sometimes, again, like my companions were, I liked them. They were good missionaries. They were good people. They were good friends to me. But you don't necessarily always want to talk to the same person 24 hours a day. What ended up happening was my sister leader in the mission, I like confided to her about some of this, of what I was experiencing. And she told the mission president, and I'll be honest, I don't remember, like if I had told him any of like what I had been experiencing or not, I don't remember, but I told her, she told him, he called me and said that my companion and I should go to the mission home like the next morning, which was like a 5.5 hour drive away. And he took me into his office and sat across from me and handed me my ticket home.
Wow.
He didn't talk to you about anything, or like it was that simple? He just basically,
Very little to no warning.
Yeah, like he said things, right? Sure. But I don't know if he asked me how I was doing or asked me about my experience, and I didn't have any part in like the decision of whether or not I'd be going.
Wow.
How did that feel in the moment? Was that what you needed, or was that like, was it a relief when you got that ticket? Was it like you wish you could talk to him more and maybe try to stay if that was possible? Like, walk me through that.
When we were driving to the mission home, very long drive, we got special permission to use that much gas to drive 4.5 hours or 5 hours, whatever it was, across state lines to the mission home. I remember feeling this sense of relief and peace and feeling like, okay, God's going to take care of me. Like God's stepping in, like not knowing, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I could tell something was changing and I knew that I needed a change. And so I felt peace then. And I think when he handed me the ticket, that kind of carried through to just the feeling of, okay, like something is changing, like this is God like taking care of me. And so it felt okay, but I don't have great feelings as far as like the interaction between like my mission president and I, like looking back on that, if that makes sense. Like I feel like God was on my side in the moment, but maybe like my mission president wasn't.
Gotcha. Okay. Feel free to jump in, Ashton, with any questions you have as well. I forgot to say that earlier. So
Sure.
Okay. How was it coming home?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, being a convert, your family weren't members of the church, right?
Oh my gosh, it was such a miracle. One thing was before I left the MTC. So like I got set apart, gave my farewell talk in California, and then my parents and I drove from California to Utah to go to the MTC. And before church that day, before I got set apart, before I gave my talk, oh my gosh, where are the freaking tissues? You guys, I'm an ugly crier. Like Kim Kardashian has nothing on me as far as ugly crying.
No judgment here.
My dad, I was in my room and my dad came in and sat on my bed next to me. And he said, I know that this is really important to you, but I want you to know that you can always come home.
What were your parents' religious affiliation? Because you're a convert at 16.
Mm-hmm.
What was their journey at that time for you?
My dad's an atheist.
Okay.
He was then and is now. My mom is, well, she was like a new age, like kind of spiritualist. Yeah.
Wow. That's really special.
Yeah.
Just knowing that your dad was in that place personally and was so supportive of you.
Yeah. They both, I mean, they didn't just come to my baptism. They like bought me my first set of scriptures.
Wow.
They threw me a party. They paid for my whole mission. Yeah, like drove me up here to the MTC, like took me to Sister Missionary Mall, like went on a tour of like the conference center with me, like watched the Joseph Smith video at the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, like all those things. But yeah, sat with me and said, I know this is important to you, but I want you to know you can always come home. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm not coming home, like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
But then came home and I remember, most people have like homecoming welcome parties, right? When they get back with like the signs and stuff. And I didn't get that, we drove to the mission office. The mission president handed me my ticket and my flight was for the next morning. And, but right after that, he said I could like call my mom. And so like I called my mom and like immediately like you hear your mom's voice after not hearing it for a while. I just like immediately start crying. And I tell her that I'm coming home and thanks. Like seriously the ugliest crier. But my mom said to me, she said, oh, honey, everybody who loves you is just going to be so proud of you. And so I come home the next morning and most people get welcoming parties. And I didn't because it was just like on like a random like Tuesday or Wednesday evening. And my dad just picked me up from the airport on his way home from work. And I just remember like coming down the escalator to like the baggage area and just seeing my dad there. And just remember him saying, you can always come home. And like my parents are like, they are cut from some kind of cloth. Like, man, like they always said to me, we just like want you to be happy. And they always really meant it, And it's like when I joined the church, they were with me. And then like when I came home early, there was no like, I told you so. Or like, there was no like, oh, aren't you glad you're done with that now? It was just like,
yeah, that's cool.
We're with you the whole way. So he picked me up, and then on the way home from the airport, we stopped at a church building where we met with one of the stake presidency members to be released. So I was like released before I even like saw my mom or anyone besides my dad. And so it was just me and my dad and Brother Wilson, President Wilson, in his office at this church building. And I don't remember a lot of what he said. He didn't say a lot. But one thing I will remember until the day that I die was him looking at me dead in the eye and saying, "You do not owe anybody an explanation."
This was 2006? Sorry?
This would have been 2009.
2009, sorry. I
Yeah.
got the timeline mixed up. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, I was a senior in high school when they made the mission age change, and that kind of sparked this big wave and so forth. And so people coming home early, maybe it was talked about before, but like I really saw it like at that point, and just how different people felt and here in Utah, and you know, lots of different feelings of shame and oh, I didn't measure up. And I think that's really cool that your leader said that.
Yeah.
It's what should have been said.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think he just knew.
Yeah.
He knew about people. He knew what people were like. And I ended up being pretty lucky that I didn't feel like I had a lot of people looking for an explanation. But like, I feel like that's one of the most important things. But yeah, that's the best thing he could have said. Yeah. And I think that he believed it about what I was obligated to do. And he just like really launched me into like the experience of coming home in a way that was, I guess, helped me to feel like I wasn't like at a deficit.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we've got like 7 minutes.
Okay. If you have any questions, then just like.
I do want to get to this call from church headquarters, but maybe that's coming up naturally. So.
Okay. So so there's a family that I was really close to that was in like the home ward that I had been baptized in, that I was super, super close to. And I think that I had called her from the airport, like on a layover, and let her know I was coming home. And they were like very, very active, very faithful, like rah, Juliet's going on a mission. But I'd called her and let her know. And I came home from that meeting with the stake president. I stopped in, said hi to my mom. And then before even changing out of my like missionary clothes, I got in my car, my old car that was at my parents' house, and I drove to see this family. And I go and I knock on the door and I open it. They had a freaking banner that said, "Welcome home, Sister Miller," and balloons and a cake. And they had 4 little kids who I had been nannying for at that point for like 4 years. And they loved me and I loved them. And they were all so genuinely excited to see me. And so we had our little party, and then I went back home. And so I had been away at school in Santa Barbara, which was like 4 hours from where my parents lived, and, you know, was like in the singles ward there and had a lot of friends there. So that night I came back home and I called one of my really good friends, Ryan, and like he didn't know at that point that I was home, but I was like, he answered, I was like, "Hey, Ryan," and he was like, "Hey, Juliet." And I was like, "Yeah, it's me." And he was like, I remember him shrieking. He was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Juliet," and was just like so excited to hear my voice. And that was like the experience I had with all of my friends. I ended up, this was in May. And so I thought I was going to be taking a 2-year leave of absence. I just cut it down to 1 year, and I was able to go back to school like the following September. That was in May. I moved back up to Santa Barbara in June, moved in with some girls in the ward that had a spot in their apartment. And like my second Sunday back in the ward, I got called to be in the Relief Society presidency, which like maybe was the bishopric being like, oh, we need to like make sure we don't lose her. I don't know, maybe. But I think it's just because like they needed someone to do the calling and they knew I would do it. And so I guess I felt like I was legitimized as like still being good with that. And I think up until that point, I felt like I was loved and accepted in the church, but I had been doing everything right. And then I felt like I had done this big thing wrong. And I was just as loved.
Wow.
And just as accepted. And that who I was so much more important to people than that like particular experience that I had had. So that makes me love the Mormon church a whole lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Got me tearing up.
Yeah.
I'm married to someone who came home from her mission early, and I wish he had your experience. You know, that's really awesome. The people that took care of you and helped you, and yeah,
yeah, yeah. Me too. It happens to a lot of people. And I recently saw someone pose the question, like, why is it that there are so many people that come home early who like, for what, you know, who aren't able to function well on a mission, but they come home and they're able to function just fine at school and in their jobs and in their relationships, you know, like it's something that is wrong with them, or maybe is it something wrong with like the mission experience, which I think that like there are strides that are being made to make it like a healthier place for more people, you know, being a missionary. But yeah, it's scary. It's scary to come home.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that your wife had what sounds like an experience that a lot of people have.
Yeah. Well, thank you. My last question for you, unless you have something, Ashton, but
I don't have anything, and I just wanted to allow you to talk so I could hear more of your story.
Yeah. And maybe I should have asked this earlier, and we're coming up on time, but I was curious why you wanted to serve a mission in the first place. Like, did you know what you were getting into necessarily?
Yeah.
Did you have fears about coming home early and stuff? And
my very first missionary discussion that I had when I was 16, at the end of the discussion, one of the elders asked, do you have any questions? And my one question was, do girls do what you do? And they said, yes. And I said, if I join this church, I think I'm going to be a missionary. And that was just always the plan. I loved teaching. I just loved everything about it.
Cool.
Yeah. And I feel like it was more or less like what I expected it would be like. I don't know if going into it, I had thoughts about coming home because I thought that just wasn't going to happen to me. So, psych.
Well, cool. You make an end of speaking?
I make an end of my speaking.
There we go. That's our term around here. Well, thank you, Juliet, for being vulnerable and sharing that experience with us. If you, listener, had a similar experience and came home early from your mission and feel like you want to share it in the comments, we'd love to hear it. We're grateful for this community we're trying to build and grateful for you listening in. So catch us next week to listen to Ashton's story about his mission. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.